Commander Elena Frost straightened her perfectly pressed Terran Diplomatic Corps uniform and stepped onto the crystalline podium of the Grand Galactic Council chambers. The ridiculously opulent hall gleamed with materials worth more than several small planets, because nothing said we care about our citizens quite like floors made of compressed stardust and chairs carved from extinct tree species. "Nice place you've got here," Elena muttered under her breath. Subtle. The chamber housed representatives from over 300 species, most of whom were staring at her with expressions ranging from mild curiosity to outright disdain. The delegation from the Galactic Empire occupied the most prominent seats. Naturally, their High Chancellor Vrextur lounged on what could only be described as a hovering throne, his 6 eyes blinking in an unsynchronized pattern that humans found deeply unsettling. Probably intentional, Elena thought. 50 years. That's how long humans had been playing this cosmic game of political chess. 50 years since our ships ventured beyond Mars and bumped into the galaxy's most insufferable neighbors. 50 years of being patted on the head like children who accidentally wandered into the adults' room. "Oh look, the primitives have learned to use the transport system," one Imperial diplomat whispered loudly enough to be heard. Several delegates chuckled. The Empire's idea of subtlety was about as refined as their fashion sense, which seemed to involve cramming as many precious metals onto their bodies as gravitationally possible. Elena tapped the universal translator at her collar and cleared her throat. The sound reverberated through the chamber with satisfying authority, silencing the murmurs. "Distinguished delegates of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice carrying the perfect blend of diplomatic politeness and what her staff called her "don't mess with me" tone. "I stand before you today representing the United Terran Systems." The Imperial delegation shifted uncomfortably. Something in her tone must have triggered their survival instincts. "Good. Earth and her colonies have an announcement to make regarding our ongoing relationship with the Galactic Empire." Elena paused, allowing a thin smile to form on her lips. "Or should I say our soon-to-be former relationship?" The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. This wasn't on the agenda. The Empire's representatives straightened in their seats. "As of today, by unanimous decision of Earth's Global Council, the Galactic Empire is hereby banned from all Terran space." 50 years earlier, humanity's first faster-than-light vessel, the TSV Pathfinder, hovered at the edge of our solar system. Captain Marcus Chen stood on the bridge, mouth slightly agape as the sensors detected not one but 17 massive ships approaching from the direction of Alpha Centauri. "Well," he said to his equally stunned crew, "I guess we're not alone after all. Someone alert the philosophers, theologians and liquor companies back home." The Imperial ships dwarfed the Pathfinder like blue whales next to a rowboat. Their hulls gleamed with an iridescent material that seemed to both absorb and reflect light, a technological marvel that had Earth's engineers drooling from afar. "They're hailing us, Captain," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, her voice impressively steady considering the circumstances. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing what appeared to be a cross between a praying mantis and a peacock wearing what could only be described as the galaxy's gaudiest bathroom curtains. The alien had too many limbs doing too many things at once, adjusting various controls, preening its feather-like appendages, and somehow managing to look down its nose equivalent at the humans despite having its visual organs on the sides of its head. "I am Grand Ambassador Zalorax of the Galactic Imperial Fleet," the translator rendered in slightly robotic English. "You have the unprecedented honor of being addressed by a Level 9 diplomatic envoy of His Eternal Magnificence, Emperor Zerdalik the Resplendent." Chen blinked twice. "Captain Marcus Chen of Earth." "Hello." The alien's appendages twitched in what the crew would later learn was barely contained irritation at Chen's brevity. Apparently the proper response involved at least 3 minutes of groveling and title recitation. "Your species has achieved rudimentary space travel," Zalorax continued. "Most impressive for beings at your developmental stage." Chen's diplomatic training kicked in, suppressing the urge to point out that humans had gone from first flight to interstellar travel in less than 2 centuries. "We're quick learners." "Indeed. The Galactic Empire extends its most generous offer to incorporate your world as a Category 7 protected developmental zone. You will benefit from our guidance, protection and limited technology transfers appropriate for species of your cognitive capacity." The bridge crew exchanged glances. Rodriguez discreetly pulled up the first contact protocols on her tablet. "That sounds suspiciously like colonization with extra steps," Chen said, maintaining a pleasant smile. Zalorax's translator must have struggled, because the alien made a series of clicking sounds before responding. Your primitive terminology fails to capture the magnanimity of our offer. You would retain limited self-governance under imperial oversight. How thoughtful, Chen replied. And what do you get from this arrangement? The satisfaction of guiding another species toward civilization, of course. Zalorax paused. And merely 80% of any resources deemed non-essential for your development. Chen nodded thoughtfully. Ambassador Zalorax, on behalf of Earth, I extend our sincere appreciation for your extremely generous offer. We request the standard galactic time frame to consider such proposals. The alien seemed pleased. The standard consideration period is 1 imperial cycle, approximately 60 of your Earth days. Perfect, Chen said, his smile never wavering. We'll have our answer then. What the Empire didn't know was that Earth had already been monitoring their communications for years, and humanity had no intention of becoming anyone's pet project. The Empire's relationship with humanity over the next 5 decades could best be described as a masterclass in how not to make friends in the galaxy. It was almost impressive how consistently they managed to underestimate, insult, and irritate their way into humanity's collective bad side. First came the merchants. Oh, the merchants. This is our finest personal transportation unit. A Vorlaxian trader had assured Governor Santiago of the Mars colony. Top-of-the-line imperial technology, guaranteed for 20 cycles. What he failed to mention was that 20 cycles in imperial standard translated to roughly 3 Earth weeks, and that the finest technology had actually been obsolete in the Empire for over a century. The vehicle broke down during the Martian colony's welcome parade, spewing toxic fumes that hospitalized 12 people. When Santiago filed a formal complaint, the Imperial Trade Authorities sent back a message essentially saying, "What did you expect? Giving advanced technology to monkeys." Except they used the term precognitive sentience, which was somehow more insulting. Then there was the Jupiter Station incident. Dr. Reina Patel and her team had been conducting routine atmospheric research when an Imperial security vessel decided to inspect the station. What followed was 8 hours of Imperial officers detaining human scientists in their own facility while confiscating research equipment under the guise of contraband technology verification. You don't have clearance to possess analytical devices of this complexity, the Imperial officer had stated, confiscating spectrometers that had been entirely designed and built on Earth. When the diplomatic corps raised the issue, the Empire simply responded that they were preventing potential hazards from technology misuse by developing species. The equipment was never returned, but the mining operations on Mars truly demonstrated the Empire's incredible talent for diplomatic self-sabotage. Despite 3 separate treaties explicitly protecting Martian resources for human development, Imperial mining corporations somehow misinterpreted the boundaries and established operations in Valles Marineris, extracting rare minerals critical for Earth's growing fleet. A simple navigational error, claimed the Imperial governor of the sector when confronted with irrefutable evidence of the treaty violation. The positioning system must have been calibrated to pre-treaty maps. The fact that they happened to navigational error their way directly to the richest deposits was apparently pure coincidence. Through it all, Imperial diplomats maintained their insufferable condescension. Ambassador Cuthrix once patted the UN Secretary-General on the head during a formal reception. Actually patted her head, like she was a well-behaved pet who had performed an amusing trick by using proper utensils. "Your species adapts remarkably well" was a common backhanded compliment. The unspoken extension being, for primitive beings who only recently figured out how not to die from basic infections. Humans, for their part, smiled politely while documenting every slight, every violation, every condescending remark. The Empire mistook this restraint for submission, never realizing they were dealing with a species that had elevated holding grudges into an art form. The final straw came when 3 Imperial cruisers positioned themselves around Titan, Saturn's largest moon. Without notification, without permission, they began constructing what they called a navigational assistance outpost, which conveniently had weapons systems capable of targeting every human installation in the outer solar system. When confronted, the Imperial commander simply shrugged his upper appendages. "This is Imperial space." "Since when?" demanded Admiral Chen, now commanding Earth's rapidly growing defensive fleet. "Since we arrived," the commander replied. "Your species hasn't formally claimed this moon in the Galactic Registry." Chen's response was remarkably restrained, all things considered. You have 48 hours to dismantle that station and leave Titan. The Imperial commander laughed. At least, that's what humans assumed the wheezing noise was. Or what? You'll attack Imperial ships with your primitive weapons. I would enjoy seeing the attempt. As it turned out, the Empire had made a terrible miscalculation. One of many. While the Empire had been busy condescending to humanity, humans had been busy doing what they do best: learning, adapting and preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. And by hoping for the best I mean developing technology that would make the Empire choke on their own superiority complex. Dr. Lydia Okonkwo ran her hand over the sleek surface of what appeared to be a standard Imperial communication device. The device that the Empire believed humans could barely operate without assistance. The device that her team had not only mastered but fundamentally redesigned from the inside out. Their biggest mistake, she told the assembled Joint Chiefs of Staff, was assuming we'd use their technology the way they intended. The meeting was taking place 300 meters beneath the Olympus Mons research facility on Mars, a location deliberately chosen because Imperial sensors couldn't penetrate the unique magnetic properties of the mountain. Not that the Empire knew human sensor technology could detect their attempts at surveillance. For 5 decades, Lydia continued, we've maintained the appearance of technological dependence. When they gave us FTL communication systems, we acted impressed and asked basic questions. Meanwhile, we were reverse engineering not just how they work, but why they work the way they do. Admiral Chen, now sporting considerably more gray hair than during first contact, leaned forward. And the results? Lydia smiled. We've surpassed them in 17 key technological areas while deliberately lagging behind invisible ones. She tapped a command into her wrist unit, and a holographic display filled the center of the room. It showed the solar system, with a shimmering web-like structure extending outward from Earth to beyond the orbit of Neptune. This is the Terran Shield, a network of quantum-entangled defensive nodes that we've been deploying for the past 15 years. The Empire believes they're observing our primitive attempts at a defensive grid. In reality, it's the most advanced protection system in known space. How can you be sure? Asked General Rodriguez, eyeing the display skeptically. Because we've had access to the Empire's military databases for over a decade, Lydia replied casually, as if announcing she'd picked up groceries. They still think their encryption is unbreakable because no species at our development level should be able to understand quantum cryptography. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. It's not just defensive capabilities, Lydia continued. We've completely reworked their propulsion theories. Imperial ships use controlled quantum fluctuations for FTL travel. Effective, but inefficient. Our approach uses what we call dimensional folding, essentially creating localized space-time shortcuts. In English, Dr. Chen prompted with a smile. Their ships go really fast. Ours take shortcuts through space-time. We're not faster, we're smarter about the route. The Secretary of Defense raised her hand. And they have no idea. None. Their arrogance is our greatest advantage. They literally cannot conceive of a primitive species outthinking them. When their sensors detect anomalies in our technology, they attribute it to measurement errors, rather than innovation. Lydia brought up another display showing the incident on Titan. Their ships currently surrounding Titan. We could disable them with a single command. Their weapons would go offline. Their navigation systems would fail, and their communication would be limited to sending very angry letters via carrier pigeon, if they had pigeons, which they don't. Admiral Chen added helpfully. Precisely. Lydia nodded. The Empire's technology follows predictable patterns because they haven't had to truly innovate in millennia. They've been the dominant force for so long that their development has stagnated. And humans, asked the President, who had been silently observing until now. We've had to fight, scratch, and improvise our way through our entire history. Our primitive natures, as they call it, is actually our greatest strength. We don't think like they do. We're unpredictable, adaptive, and frankly a bit paranoid. All qualities that drive innovation. General Rodriguez chuckled. So being the galaxy's perpetual underdogs has its advantages. More than they could possibly imagine, Lydia confirmed. We've built back doors into virtually every piece of Imperial technology in Terran space. At this point, we know more about their systems than most of their own engineers. The President stood, her decision made. So if we were to say kick the Empire out of our solar system, they couldn't stop us. Lydia completed the thought. And they wouldn't even understand how we did it. Admiral Chen's smile was downright predatory. I believe it's time we stopped playing the grateful novice and showed the Empire exactly what humanity is capable of. Agreed, said the President. Operation Galactic Timeout is now in effect. Back in the present day, the Galactic Council chamber had erupted into chaos. Commander Elena Frost stood calmly at the podium as Imperial representatives shouted over each other, their translator units struggling to keep up with what appeared to be a spectacular variety of alien expletives. Order. Order in the chamber. The Council mediator, a gelatinous being with remarkable lung capacity for something without apparent lungs, finally managed to quiet the uproar. High Chancellor Vrextur rose from his floating throne, all 6 eyes focused on Elena. This is an outrageous breach of galactic protocol. Earth has no authority to ban an Imperial presence. You are but one planet, one star system and 17 colonies across 12 star systems, Elena corrected pleasantly. We've been busy. Regardless. Vrextur's voice boomed through the chamber. The Empire has granted your species considerable leeway despite your developmental limitations. This display of ingratitude. Ingratitude. Elena raised an eyebrow. Perhaps I wasn't clear. Let me elaborate on the terms. She tapped her wrist unit, and holographic displays appeared before each council member. The Galactic Empire is hereby banned from all Terran space, which includes the Sol system and all human colonial territories. All Imperial diplomatic missions are revoked. All trade agreements are nullified. All Imperial ships currently in Terran space have 48 hours to leave or be forcibly removed. The Imperial delegation's collective expressions of shock would have made excellent commemorative postcards. Several other species representatives were making valiant efforts to hide their amusement. The Arcturian ambassador appeared to be choking on their beverage. This is madness, sputtered an Imperial diplomat. On what grounds do you make these outrageous demands? Elena's smile shifted from diplomatic to predatory. I'm so glad you asked. Another tap of her wrist unit, and the holographic displays updated to show a comprehensive list of Imperial violations against Earth and her colonies over the past 50 years. Treaty breaches, resource theft, unlawful detainment of human scientists, unauthorized military installations. Each incident meticulously documented with timestamps, coordinates and most damning internal Imperial communications confirming the deliberate nature of these violations. We have evidence of 97 major violations of galactic law by the Empire against human interests, Elena stated, including direct orders from Imperial High Command to exploit what they termed, and I quote, the naive trust of the primitive Earth species. Several council members gasped. The Empire prided itself on its public commitment to guiding younger species. This evidence painted a very different picture. The mediator leaned forward, gelatinous form rippling with interest. How did you obtain these communications? Elena's expression was the perfect blend of innocence and amusement. Let's just say humans are quick studies when it comes to communication technologies. High Chancellor Vrextur was turning an interesting shade of purple. These documents are forgeries. The Empire would never. They're authenticated with Imperial quantum signatures, Elena interrupted. Your own security protocols confirm their validity. She turned to address the entire council. We're not asking for reparations, though we'd be entitled to them under Article 578 of the Galactic Charter. We're simply establishing boundaries. The Empire has proven itself an untrustworthy neighbor, so we're putting up the equivalent of a no trespassing sign. The chamber had gone from chaos to stunned silence. Several species that had suffered similar treatment from the Empire were exchanging meaningful glances. If humans could stand up to the Empire. This is unprecedented, the mediator finally stated. So was the Empire's behavior, Elena replied. Though I suspect we're not the first to experience it. Just the first with enough evidence to do something about it. High Chancellor Vrextur's voice lowered to a dangerous rumble. If Earth persists with this foolishness, the consequences will be severe. Elena met his six-eyed glare without flinching. Is that a threat, Chancellor? It is reality. No one defies the Empire. Elena smiled. Well then, this should be interesting. 3 Imperial dreadnoughts dropped out of FTL on the edge of the Sol system exactly 6 hours after Elena's declaration. Each massive vessel stretched nearly 5 kilometers from bow to stern, bristling with enough firepower to reduce a small moon to rubble. Their arrival was presumably meant to be intimidating. In the Terran Space Command Center beneath the Himalayan mountains, Admiral Marcus Chen watched the Imperial ships on the main display and sipped his coffee. Right on schedule, he remarked to nobody in particular. The Empire's creativity extends to their military strategy about as far as it does to their fashion sense. Lieutenant Commander Osei glanced up from her station. They're broadcasting, sir. System-wide. Chen nodded. Put it through. Let's hear what terrifying consequences await our impudence. The imperious face of Admiral Zex Coulter, Supreme Commander of the Imperial Fleet's 3rd Division, appeared on screen. His ceremonial battle harness gleamed with medals that looked suspiciously like they came from a discount party store. Attention, citizens of Earth and her colonies. Your government's actions constitute a direct challenge to Imperial authority. This is your only warning. Rescind your declaration immediately, or face the consequences. You have 1 hour to comply. Chen set down his coffee cup and leaned forward. Open a channel. When connected, he offered the Imperial Admiral his most pleasant smile. Admiral Zex Coulter, this is Fleet Commander Marcus Chen of Terran Space Command. I'm afraid Earth's position remains unchanged. The alien's face contorted in what might have been confusion or indigestion. Perhaps I was unclear. Those are not negotiation vessels. They are Imperial dreadnoughts, each capable of reducing your major cities to ash. Chen's smile didn't waver. Yes, I can see that. Very impressive ships. It would be a shame if something happened to them. Is that a threat? The Admiral sputtered. Just an observation. Chen checked his watch. Your ships have approximately 42 hours remaining to leave Terran space as per our declaration. I recommend using that time wisely. The Imperial Admiral's expression shifted to what humans had come to recognize as the alien equivalent of smug superiority. Your arrogance is remarkable for a species that has barely mastered interstellar travel. The Empire has ruled the stars for millennia. Your primitive defenses are nothing against Imperial might. If you say so. Chen yawned deliberately. Is there anything else? I have a lunch meeting in 20 minutes. Apparently, dismissive boredom was not the reaction the Admiral had expected to his threats. His voice rose to a screech that strained the translation software. You have made your choice. The Empire will make an example of Earth. The transmission cut, and the 3 dreadnoughts began moving toward Earth. They're powering up weapons systems, Osei reported calmly. Chen nodded. Right then. Activate the Terran shield. Protocol. Hubris. Throughout the solar system, hidden nodes of the quantum defense network hummed to life. Microseconds later, all 3 Imperial dreadnoughts simply stopped. Their engines died. Their weapons powered down. Their artificial gravity failed. On the command center's main screen, the dreadnoughts drifted helplessly in space like abandoned toys. Open a channel to all 3 vessels, Chen said, picking up his coffee again. When the connection established, he smiled at the visibly panicking Imperial crews. As I was saying about using your time wisely, 6 months after what the Galactic media dubbed the Terra Ultimatum, the political landscape had shifted more dramatically than anyone, except perhaps a few forward-thinking humans, had anticipated. The Galactic Council chambers no longer featured the Empire in its traditionally dominant position. Their delegation had been downsized and relocated to a less prominent section, a physical manifestation of their diminished influence. The empty space they left behind had been filled by a coalition of mid-tier powers, with Earth surprisingly among them. The Terran Trade Alliance welcomes the Arcturian Confederation as our newest member, announced Elena Frost, now serving as Earth's permanent representative to the Council. This brings our partnership to 23 systems united in fair commerce and mutual defense. Nearly every one of those 23 systems had previously suffered under Imperial economic exploitation. Now they found themselves in a rapidly growing alliance built on principles that seemed almost naively straightforward: fair trade, technological exchange, and mutual respect. The Empire had not taken its humiliation gracefully. Their initial retaliatory embargo against Earth had backfired spectacularly when it became clear just how many critical resource routes passed through Terran-controlled space. Without access to these routes, Imperial commercial vessels were forced to take lengthy detours that increased costs by nearly 200%. The Empire's quarterly economic projections show their 4th consecutive decline, Lydia Okonkwo reported during the United Earth Security Council meeting. Now serving as Secretary of Xenotechnology, she barely concealed her satisfaction. Their grip on the Orion arm markets has weakened substantially. 6 systems previously under Imperial economic control have applied for independent status. The real shock to the galactic community wasn't just that humans had stood up to the Empire, it was that they had done so with previously undetected technological superiority. The term smiling predators had begun circulating in diplomatic circles, a reference to humanity's seemingly friendly demeanor concealing unexpected teeth. The key difference, explained a Rigelian diplomat to his government, is that humans don't demand subjugation. They request respect and offer the same in return. They've created an alternative to imperial hegemony that doesn't require domination. Perhaps most telling was the story that made rounds in the seedier parts of galactic society. An imperial merchant attempting to cheat a human trader found himself not just caught but thoroughly educated on exactly how his own technology worked, and how the human had improved it. Next time, the human reportedly said, "Just ask. We're happy to share knowledge with honest partners." The lesson was spreading throughout the galaxy. Humans were dangerous not because they were conquerors, but because they offered a better way. The Galactic Embassy on Earth had once been a modest building, suitable for a developing species according to imperial standards. Now it housed representatives from 37 civilizations, with architecture that blended elements from across the galaxy. The reception hall buzzed with dozens of languages, all seamlessly translated by systems designed by Dr. Okonkwo's team. Admiral, now Fleet Commander Emeritus, Marcus Chen found Elena Frost on the balcony overlooking the Geneva night skyline. She was nursing what appeared to be genuine Arcturian cloud wine, a beverage that had been considered too sophisticated for human palates just a year ago. "Quite the party," Chen remarked, joining her at the railing. "Who would have thought?" Elena replied. "Turns out all it took to become popular in the galaxy was standing up to the biggest bully in the cosmic playground." Chen chuckled and raised his glass. "To the Empire's most generous contribution to humanity, the motivation to surpass them. I'll drink to that." They clinked glasses. Below them the reception continued. Representatives from species that had barely acknowledged humanity's existence now eagerly sought trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and defensive pacts. "We have a visitor," Elena noted, nodding toward the entrance where a nervous-looking imperial diplomat was being scanned by security. "That's Ambassador Kavix, the new imperial representative. Significantly less pompous than his predecessor," Chen observed. "Amazing how having your dreadnoughts turned off like children's toys can adjust an attitude." The imperial ambassador spotted them and made his way to the balcony, his ceremonial robes noticeably less ostentatious than what imperial officials typically wore. "Commander Frost, Fleet Commander Chen." He greeted them with a respectful bow. "I bring greetings from the imperial court." "Ambassador," Elena acknowledged. "How may we help the Empire today?" Kavix seemed to struggle with his next words. "The Emperor wishes to explore the possibility of renegotiating limited diplomatic relations with Earth. On Earth's terms, I presume?" Chen asked mildly. "Naturally," the ambassador replied, with what might have been the alien equivalent of a wince. Elena exchanged a glance with Chen. "We're open to discussions, Ambassador. Earth has never sought to isolate any peaceful civilization." After the ambassador departed to mingle with the other guests, Chen leaned closer to Elena. "You know what the best part is? We taught them the most important lesson of all, which is, politeness costs nothing but rudeness might cost you an empire." Elena laughed. "I'll definitely drink to that."